Point of change. Wuppertal is about 1 hour away on the train from Cologne South Station, and the home of Cologne University's main campus at Albertus Magnus Square, where I was attending my Introduction to Modern Linguistics course with a very fanciful tutor called Jessica. I had religiously attended every class so far in order to catch a glimpse of her. On this fateful day she had just marked our first exam on syntax and morphology. We had been studying Noam Chomsky's X-bar theory of sentence structure in German. When I had gotten there, I had felt unusually tired, almost as if I were going to nod off to sleep standing up. I didn't think that was anything unusual at first. I simply went for a coffee in the bar and then to class in the main building opposite the hall, or Aula as it is known in German. Over and above this experience, I hadn't been feeling well for weeks, and consequently I'd been slow in the test, missing out on marks for one entire question, and had just about middled through this time. Holding my paper in my hand, I had walked out of the classroom, but only managed a couple of steps before my head started to spin uncontrollably. I panicked. I could barely stand up. I didn't realise it was possible to predict one's death, but somehow that day I felt as if I wasn't going to make it if I didn't seek medical attention right away. It was an uneasy feeling in the stomach, as if you were going to be sick but couldn't quite manage it. Swooning around, I arrived at the security desk to ask where the on-campus surgery was. The guard told me to walk to A&E myself. It was about half a mile down the road, somewhere in that direction, he claimed. In response to that, I protested it was a matter of urgency, but he insisted he had no time to help me further. It was a swelteringly hot spring or early summer afternoon. The main hospital, the university clinic, was such a long way down Kirpener Street that I felt I wasn't going to survive. Not only that, I was still in my first semester, thus unsure of my location and concluding that I must be going in the wrong direction. I wasn't, but took a deviation that turned out to be a blessing. I had just seen the sign to the smaller evangelical hospital, a rival institution to the right which was that bit closer. At last I was able to complain of being extremely unwell, and finally sympathy arrived. Indeed, they were kind to me, telling me to sit down and relax. They happened to check my blood sugar as a matter of routine within 10 minutes of arrival, and it was the equivalent of 25.9 millimoles, which is astronomically high. They mentioned that diabetes was likely and that I had remained undiagnosed for some time. They gave me 300 units of short-acting insulin in order to bring the glucose levels down to between 4 and 8 millimoles for the first time in months. Millimoles is the measurement of glucose in the blood, something I was about to become familiar with for the rest of my life. All of a sudden, bang, a new reality was created. I was diabetic. Having been off sick from university for longer than 3 weeks, I'd got behind so much that it rendered most of the semester invalid. Non-attendance for more than 2 weeks per semester in any class was not permitted. I was not allowed to complete my courses unless I repeated the whole semester again. Being my first semester at Cologne University of a 5-year magistratium degree in musicology with subsidiaries in English, German and Latin, it killed my confidence and hope of ever getting a degree from them, not least because the 5-year war of attrition was organised by you, the student. Unless you signed up well in advance, one had little hope of getting the courses required. Having to cope with being diabetic was the most important thing to contemplate at the time, let alone the pressures of uni. Not only that, I was working professionally as well, running my own EFL supply teaching business that was keeping my financial interests going. I still fancied my tutor rotten. I phoned to apologise to Jessica and she said, for goodness sake, get yourself better first. However, that didn't stop her sinking her teeth into a rival whilst I was nearly stretched out on a marble slab. It had never rained that hard in my life before. The lyrics of Cecilia, a Simon and Garfunkel song, sprang to mind as I whiled away the hours in peaceful quietness in my hospital chamber, watching the shadows of leafy Lindenthal and contemplating my future with every branch's yaw and rustle. Diabetes is a disease that affects the nervous system and causes organ damage. It is cognitive and degenerative, which means it is incurable. Eventually it becomes fatal and continues to deteriorate our vital signs as the disease progresses. Complications can include loss of circulation and mobility in limbs, macular degeneration in the eyes, lethargy and tiredness, heart, pancreas, liver and kidney problems, as well as early onset Alzheimer's. Basically, when I was diagnosed, the whole orientation of my life changed. I was 27 and fiercely independent. Normally such changes happen in your 40s and 50s when you know life has peaked and it's not going to get any better. I was so shocked that I couldn't just take something to make that awful feeling in the gut go away, and the shiveriness was there for the rest of my life. I remember wanting to fight it rather than flee away as much as possible. There were two possibilities as role models for that situation. Freddie Mercury, the rock star, and Mr. Bleaney from Larkin's The Whitsun Weddings. I begged God to be the former rather than the latter. I wanted to die a hero, waiting for the hammer to fall and building my muscles as my body decayed. The contrasting Mr. Bleaney frittered away his final days, plugging at the four-aways with his Frinton folk, in a room that was symbolically decaying in itself along with him, displaying distinctively frayed curtains. Either way, that day, in hospital, wanting to be Freddie's type was a compromise between being 27, having a desire for an unfenced existence, and the restrictions this debilitating disease was placing on me. After a few weeks in hospital, I was transferred up to the Barman Clinic in Wuppertal, where I was still living at the time. That said, I was about to start the process of moving to Cologne for the best 2 years of my life in an academic fraternity. The Barman Clinic is the university hospital of a world-renowned private medical school, but remains part of the regular German healthcare system. Having paid €50 a month for the student version of BKK health insurance, I was allowed one of the best courses in diabetes in the world. They taught us how to cook in a live-in environment. The course covered bread units and portion sizes. 1 slice of toast from a large loaf is 2 bread units, a portion of jam or rice is 3. I was put on a strict diet of 14 bread units a day at first, cereal with 2 or 3 slices of toast, and a modest main meal with an attenuated portion size to fit my need in carbohydrates. I was taught how to calculate my own insulin in order to inject just the right amount before each meal. It was a hellishly complicated process for a young student. They whispered to each other that I might not last 10 years with my current lifestyle of student drinking and meals on the go whilst tending to my EFL business. I remember not having been able to cope, that looking forward it was all downhill. I'd reached a massive changing point in my life. Confronting the possibility that I was never going to get better made me doubly tired at first. Lethargy, queasiness, aches and pains were a few things I was going to have to live with from now on in life. I just wish I could have been given a second chance to be young. I was so enjoying myself, but it wasn't to come. 1 minute, so it had seemed, I had been very much alive with my life stretching out infinitely ahead of me, and now I was dying from here on in, however long that process might take. Reality had struck at a family dinner when I couldn't eat without sleeping afterwards. You wouldn't believe the hostility people have shown towards me gaining recognition and fame for it, especially post-Brexit. I've been beaten up politically, even physically, with blame having been placed on me. I was literally criminalised and thrown out of almost all academic activity, which has meant so much to me down the years. The authorities seem to want to prove it can't be done. I was hacked to pieces to stop me being the Freddie I so desperately wanted to become. I need his factor for the fulfilment of my ambition to achieve a perfect pilgrim's progress through life to God, working on all your weaknesses and strengths so as to be as fulfilled as to leap into his arms. My friend and world-renowned optician Richard Annan, whose funeral I sang at a few years ago at St Leonard's Church in Lexington, achieved this. He was so prepared for death when it occurred that he was able to plan his own funeral, even down to the final choral anthem, Thou Wilt Keep Him in Perfect Peace, by the Anglican 19th century composer S.S. Wesley. Him having been a lay preacher, he was such a powerful tribute from a packed church that I had to forego my place in the choir and perch myself at the side of the chancel to sing him off. It is my intention to have a coveted 5-star funeral myself, as my friend and fellow choral scholar Robin had put it. To me he coined that phrase, having seen many such commemorative services as a choral scholar at King's Ely in the 1970s. A 5-star funeral is to pack a church to the rafters, in a similar fashion to Michael Aspel's This Is Your Life, the 1980s TV show. Intending to be that rich, famous and fulfilled at my end, don't stop me now.